Good morning.
Morning,
My name is Carlos. Carlos too.
I'm Carlos.
Okay.
Both are Carlos.
Okay.
We are students from University Amazonas University. We are in the subject of applied linguistics, on which we have to interview a bilingual person. And so
Okay. First of all, do you want to introduce yourself, please?
My name is Carlos, and I am a licenciate in modern languages from the Colombiana University, and I am a director of IT.
Okay.
where are you from?
I'm from Neiva.
From
I have been living in Valencia for the last 15 years.
15 years. First time. And have you ever tried to foreign country?
Yeah, many times, but I mean, you specifically refer to an English spoken
Yes,
country.
yes.
Because I can say I traveled to Ecuador, you know.
Yes.
Yeah, yeah, I lived in London for 2 years and a half, and I lived in the United States where I had the opportunity to work and study at the same time, which by the way, in London I studied for 2 years. Then I lived 6 months in Canada, exactly in Montreal, where I had the chance to practice my French as well. And then I moved to Trinidad and Tobago, and I lived for almost 3 months there, and then I'm here.
How many languages do you speak?
Well, apart from Spanish, let's say I am native speaker of Spanish. Then I am C2 in English. I received my certification last week in C2. And in French, I am B2. In Italian, I am A2. Well, so I can say that I speak 4 languages.
It means you are a multilingual person.
Yeah.
Well, kind of, yes.
That's great.
Yeah. Okay. About that, could you tell us how was your process to acquire those languages?
Well, first we must have into account what the difference is between acquisition and learning. Now, all of us we have been immersed into the learning process, but very few of people have been immersed into the acquisition process. Acquisition comes with life and the needs what you have in life. There are many people who have lived in other countries, especially English spoken countries, and they will acquire the speaking skill. They are very competitive while speaking, but they are very poor at grammar or structures. So a person comes here and they talk to you, but you face that person into a test, and that person immediately fails, right? Because they just acquired language. It's similar to people here in Colombia, where they are from the rural areas, and they have been living all their life there, but they don't have been immersed into an academic environment. So they come here, and the structure they speak is very poor. Even they cannot pronounce things very well, but they are communicative competent. So it's the same. So I had the chance to live those two aspects. The first, I moved to England when I was almost 16 years old, and I had the chance to study English there. But everything was 20% was learning and 80% was practice, which was the acquisition. So many of the things that I could do in the language was just because I got them through experiences. But if you ask me the structure of those sentences, I had no idea what they were. I just said like, may I use the bathroom, but I never knew that what may was, that it was a mother verb that I have to go before the noun, before the pronoun, because you are asking a question. You know, so may I use the bathroom? I just learned it as a poem. I just learned it by heart, you know, but I didn't know the structure. I just learned it like a normal expression. Then I returned to Colombia, and I entered university to study modern languages, which, by the way, was not a really strong tool for me, because when I entered the university, I was exposed to very few English at that level for me. So I asked the head of the program that I wanted to validate my English. I didn't want to study all of it.
You learn English first than French or other language?
Yes, I learned English first. Then when I returned to Colombia and I joined modern languages program at university, I didn't study English because I brought with me some certifications and I brought some certifications of acquisition of learning. And they gave me a test at the university, so I passed it and I didn't have to study it. But at that moment, I studied my process of learning French as a second topic at the university. We had another third option, which was Italian or German. Obviously, German is not easy and is very strong. And if English was a little bit difficult to understand, German obviously much more. So I chose just Italian as a part of a complement. But at the program, English and French was mandatory, right? Italian and German was just optional. And it was not included into the pensum of the academy, of the university. Then I finished my career and I had a chance to go to the United States, and I was working with the American Embassy as a Spanish teacher at some summer camps. And but that was a very short period, just 6 months, but I didn't want to return, so I applied for 2 full scholarships. And I had the chance to got one of them, and I started my master's degree in pedagogy, which I studied in Maryland University. So I was there for 2 years, and when I finished it, I didn't want to return. I wanted to study more, and I applied for a second full scholarship, and I got it as well. Obviously, I knew how I got the first, so the second was much easier. So I did a specialization in simultaneous translation at the same university. Then, during those years, I was practicing my English, right? Living but not studying English as a language, but just to communicate, not as a language. Then I moved to Canada and I was practicing my French, where I realized it was nothing. Because if you just focus on learning and then you go to another country to practice it, you are going to realize that during the first 2 or 3 weeks, you're not going to understand any word. Because you're here, you are not exposed to the language, you are not exposed to the accents, you are not exposed to the expression, you are not exposed to the complement of the language. You know, of the language itself when you are in the street. You are just learning or studying some academic words. So the language you have been exposed to is very minimum, is very limited, because limited to structures and limited to vocabulary, the one you already know. But when you are in the street, you're exposed to a life, you're exposed to a custom.
That experience was the same when you were exposed to speak English?
No, because when I went to London, I didn't speak any language. I just, everything I got in London, right? When I returned to London, I studied French, and I went there to Canada. I immediately realized I had some French, and I was confident, and I was saying to myself, well, I'm here, I've come to practice. And when I face people sometimes didn't understand what I was saying. So I had to speak like slower, better pronounced. But then they spoke to me, I didn't understand anything, not at all. Because the structures and the language that I was exposed at the university was minimal, was very limited. Is similar to Spanish. When you are in Colombia, somebody comes to Colombia learning Spanish, and they come and their structure is very limited, and they go to the Caribbean coast and they talk to a costeño. Could you imagine what the difference is?
Yeah.
It's huge. Or for example, when they go to Medellin and they talk to a paisa, the paisa starts speaking with a strong accent, with the special slangs that they have in the region. So it's very difficult to a person who is learning our language to understand it, right? So that happened to me. For the first 3 weeks, I couldn't speak a word, I didn't understand anything, and I had to study everything from the beginning again. And that's when I just got used to it, right? Then the other chance that I had was going to Trinidad and Tobago, which is an island in the Caribbean Sea. It is closing on the Antilles Island, and they have a very strong background from being British colony. But the British colony was not colonized by British themselves, they were colonized by other colonies from the British. So once Trinidad and Tobago in the 19th century, the slavery was totally abolished. So many of the black people living there just immigrating from the island. The island was totally isolated. So this British Empire, they got people from other colonies and they just populated. So many people from India and from Africa, they went to live in the island. So you can see there 80% of the population in Trinidad and Tobago, they are